staying on this, our political analyst Protas Madlala joins us now with more on this. Protas, good afternoon to you. Thank you for your time today. 12 years ago, when Jacob Zuma would go to court on the same charges, well, half of the ANC's National Executive Committee would be there to support him. Are you expecting it to be the same or quite different tomorrow?
Oh, certainly. I think in terms of the crowd and the support, I think it's going to be a very different situation. Albeit, of course, the issue of COVID-19. But I think the whole setup, the whole hullabaloo is going to be much different from what we have seen in the past few years. So while the president was still the incumbent president of the republic.
It does seem that very few senior ANC leaders, even before COVID-19, have publicly shown their support for him. I mean, very few have been actually going to court. And in fact, we've seen people, well, I suppose the MKMVA spokesperson, Carl Niehaus, and we've seen people from other political parties going to support him instead.
Well, I wonder what that says about the issue of an incumbent person and the issue of patronage. I think a lot of people sometimes they support or come out in large numbers because they see the accused as probably one of the future benefactors, of course. So I think now being a retired president is a very different situation. It's very disadvantaged from that point of view.
I mean, up until 2017, we knew that Zuma seemed to have a lot of support in the ANC. The party was almost divided at one point. Cyril Ramaphosa won the ANC leadership at Nasrec and then became president. The process since then, Zuma, we've seen him producing his own Zoom videos. I mean, it's been called Zooming with the Zumas. We've seen him going onto Twitter and making various comments. We've seen him testify at the commission, the Zondo Commission into state capture. But it would seem that he's simply not the political force that he was. Is it simply because what you talk about, things like patronage, being a benefactor, or was something else just shifted?
Well, certainly there is something very interesting. I think the issue of patronage is there, but it still remains very much very popular, especially from this end of the world. But I think the fact that he's no longer within the higher sections, higher echelons of political power, I think that is really to his disadvantage.
You talk about KwaZulu-Natal, the end of the world where you are at the moment. Sekhle Zikalala is now the KwaZulu-Natal Premier. He is leader of the ANC in that province. He was one of the few people who, when all of this started, would still go and support Zuma in court. Has Zikalala now gone to the Ramaphosa side, or does it sometimes just look a little like that?
Well, I think there was one stage when the ANC issued an instruction that people should not go out and support him. But the supporters of former President Zuma, they defied that and they came out in numbers. And then the ANC backed down and said, at least if you do show up, show your support in court, at least don't wear the party regalia. So I think that was a sort of more of a compromise situation. But I think some people still see that they owe him some loyalty, despite his disadvantaged position.
It's going to be fascinating watching all of this play out. What kind of strategy do you believe that Zuma is going to play? I mean, this has always been both a case playing out in the legal courtroom and playing out in the courtroom of public opinion. Are you expecting politics to come into what happens in court tomorrow and when the trial starts?
Well, that has been his line. That has been his line all along, where he has been crying a victim of all these things. There is a plot against me. One day I will say a lot. I will spill the bean. So he's always been seeing politics behind all these charges against him.
Do you believe that he's going to be able to make that stick? Do you think that people believe that, or do you think that as so much time has passed, I mean, he was president, the trial simply did not get underway for such a long time. Do you think that maybe the majority of people now don't believe him when he says things like that?
I think tomorrow is going to be the key contention would be around the data, as your colleague said in the intro. I think the date of the trial. I'm sure he would be saying, I want my day now, whereas the prosecutors will be saying, we're not ready, maybe next year. And then they would see that perhaps as another way of so-called victimizing him politically by delaying him what they call it, justice delayed is justice denied, you know.
Protas, there's another aspect to this. I don't know if we sort of pay enough attention to it, but we're still a relatively new democracy, 25 years old or so, and a former president who held the highest office in the land for a long time, 9 years, is actually appearing in court tomorrow on corruption charges. That doesn't happen in a lot of democracies, doesn't happen in a lot of countries.
Well, I think as South Africans, we should be very proud of our constitution. I mean, nowhere, I think, in Africa will this happen. Even the very powerful man on the north, Mugabe, he never appeared despite all the charges his colleagues had against him. So I think in a way, this can be seen as a maturity of our democracy, that no one is actually above the law.